Hey everyone, it's Katiuska from Between These Stitches, and I'm coming to you today to show you how I edit images in Lightroom on my desktop. So the first thing I want you to know is that I am in Lightroom and I am using the Adobe Creative Cloud, which is a monthly subscription service from Adobe, and it comes with Lightroom, Photoshop, and Bridge, and I love all three of those. So the first thing I'm going to do here is bring you to what's called the Develop module. There's the Library, Develop, Map, Book, Slideshow, Print, and Web, and they all do different things, and Lightroom within itself is a class all on its own. So that's not something I'm going to show you today, but I do want you to sort of see what I am going to be doing in order to edit this image. So this is the image that I'm going to edit, but before I do that I want to show you here. This gives you a better idea of where I take my images in my house. So again, to the left here of this image are French doors, which provide a lot of light, and to the right here is a polystyrene board that I have mentioned before, and that polystyrene board is on wood planks with wheels that my husband put on for me many moons ago, at least 5 or 6 years, if not more, and that I use to roll around my house when I need more light, and that I use to take my images. I also have a different reflector because that's what I use this at, is a reflector, and I also use that when I need more light. This is a gray wall over here, and the reason I use a gray wall is that a gray wall is neutral and provides for the most contrast, and it's what I have found that works the best for me in terms of images that I like. In addition, I used to take pictures in this area professionally, so the wall just stayed gray, and I actually love it because now most of my house is gray. So let's go back to the image we're going to edit. We're going to edit this image here. So the first thing I'm going to do is come here to this Develop module in this area. And this has different things, and really we're just going to focus here on this basic module. So the basic module is where I do most of my editing. So here you have exposure, tint, and other things such as the shadows, the highlights, the contrast, the blacks, saturation, and vibration. And these are the things that I most likely change on my images, as I explained in the other video on editing on my iPhone. So what I want to do first is go into the crop area and crop my image. What I'm going to do is take the slider and from the corner bring in the image and crop it. Then I'm also going to slightly pull it up so that I can get rid of the reflector on the right and the baseboard at the bottom. And then I will hit enter. Once I hit enter, the next thing I want to do is go into the spot removal tool and hit clone on the right hand side and change the size of my cursor so that I can then remove the wall plates from the image. This will help just give my image a cleaner image. So then I will encircle that area with my cursor, and the next thing I need to do is move the points around to find the exact color to match that area. So what I'll do next is come back to the basic module and work on the exposure. So the first thing I will do is look at my image and determine if it needs to be lightened. So I think it does, so I'm going to go to the exposure slider and do that because my face seems a little bit dark. So I take the exposure slider and I move it to the right in order to make it lighter. And what you'll notice is if I keep moving it towards the right, then it gets really bright. I could do the opposite and go towards the left and get rid of the light completely. So what I want to do really though is just slightly expose it, maybe by what's called half a stop, and I think that would work for this image. The next thing I will do is look at it and see if I need to highlight or change anything else, but when I use the exposure slider it tends to change the contrast, so I can either change the contrast slider or go to the blacks. and I prefer the black, so we're going to use that slider and go towards the left. So if you notice when I do that, it slightly brings more contrast to my image. If I go to the right, it takes it away. I prefer it slightly in towards the left, not too much, but enough that you see the distinction between the the items in my image. Next, I will go to the highlights and shadows, and I'll play with that slider just to show you. On my arm, there's a little bit of highlight, and on my forearm as well. So it's not enough really to make a difference or a change, but it's good enough for you to see that that's what we're looking for when we talk about highlights. So in my highlight slider, I will go towards the left to slightly get rid of that. And if I obviously go towards the right, it will bring back more of that highlight, which we don't want here. So we'll just go a little bit to the left just so that you can see what that looks like. Next, I will play with the shadow slider to see if there's anything in the shadows that I might want to change. There really isn't, but I will show you how that works. By sliding towards the right, you increase the light in the image in the shadows or the darker areas of the image, and if I go towards the left, it gets rid of those shadows. Makes those shadows darker. So we don't want that in this image, so what we're going to do is just try to bring it back to 0 as much as possible. Next, I will go and look at if I want to increase the whites. Again, moving the slider left or right changes the amount of white in my image. And here, I don't think I really need to do that. My shirt looks pretty white in contrast to everything else. But if I wanted to, I could just go in there and change the number or use the slider to do that. And here, I'm just changing it all back to 0. Next, what I'm going to do is come back to my exposure and actually increase the exposure slightly to make it a little bit brighter. The next thing I'm going to do is look at the tint on my image, and I just wanted to show you that I prefer images that are cooler, but if you move that slider around, you will see that the images will either get warmer, or if you go to the left, they will get cooler. I prefer my images slightly cooler, and it also helps bring out the background, which is actually gray, and so this is what looks much more like what I see with my eyes. So that's what I'm going to do here. Next, what we need to do is take a look and see if there's anything else that needs to be changed. I might take this image into Photoshop and make changes, or I can go over to the left-hand side and look at all the different presets that are available to me from Lightroom. Lightroom has many different ones. I have some that I have imported myself, but we can play with one or two of them so that you can see what they look like. Let's go to one from Lightroom. So if you click on the little arrows to the left of those, you will see right away that Lightroom has its own presets, and if you hover over them, they will show you what the image would look like if you use that preset, which is actually great because then you know what the image would look like without making any changes. That one was not such a good idea, but if you go into Lightroom General Presets, you will see what it does to your image, automatically brighten it, slightly darken, or do different things for you without you actually having to use the sliders on the right of the module. So that's pretty much it for this image. If there were any other changes that I would make, I would take my image into Photoshop and make those changes.